Tonight on Lead Story Prime, Parliament has finally tabled the controversial Integrity Commission investigative report into the affairs of the country's gun authority, the Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA. The report examined the allegations of corruption, impropriety, and irregularities in the grant, variation, and revocation of firearm licenses and storage of firearms and ammunition at the FLA. Joining us to discuss this controversial matter, from the non-tabling to tabling, as well as the contents of the report, we are going to be joined by attorney at law Clyde Williams and political commentator Dr. Nadine Spence. Yes, good evening to. Good evening to. We're about to be joined by those two commentators in a little while. But turning to the contents of this report, listeners and viewers, now according to the Integrity Commission, in its report into the allegations of corruption, impropriety, and irregularities, according to what the Integrity Commission is saying, the report is 131 pages long, and it raises several issues of concern. In the executive summary of this report, it says the investigation was commenced following a receipt of a report alleging corruption, impropriety, and irregularities in the storage of firearms and ammunition and the issuance, variation, and revocation of firearm licenses at the Firearms Licensing Authority, FLA. Now, this report was tabled in Parliament in the closing embers of today's sitting of Parliament, and so we're going through it quickly for you. The investigation found that there are accountability issues in relation to the storage of ammunition at the FLA's main vault located at the entity's headquarters, amongst other governance concerns. Also, recommendations are made in the report to the FLA and the Ministry of National Security and Peace, which aim to improve accountability and prevent a recurrence of the issues identified. The report goes on to state that in the background, that is, the chapter sets out that information concerning the investigation, jurisdiction, allegations, and a profile of the individuals pertinent to the investigation. And as you can see on your screen, viewers, the FLA report, the recommendations to the Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA, the Integrity Commission says the DI recommends that, if not yet done, the FLA must take the necessary steps to address the accountability concerns around the storage of ammunition at its main vault. The DI recommends that, given the critical nature of the operation of the FLA, if not yet done, the FLA must ensure that their servers are properly maintained and that a backup server exists. Yes, those are two of the recommendations. Another recommendation contained in the report to the Ministry of National Security and Peace, the DI says that he is recommending that the Ministry of National Security conduct a full independent audit of all the FLA's vaults with a view of determining the full extent of missing ammunition. Don't adjust your set, folks. This is what the investigative report is saying, that the Ministry of National Security, it's calling on the National Security Ministry to conduct a full independent audit of all the FLA's vaults with a view to determining the full extent of missing ammunition, and to ensure that all firearms on record are properly accounted for. Now, we are now being joined, viewers, by Clyde Williams, attorney at law. He joins us now to discuss the eventual tabling of this report. My best memory is that the Integrity Commission says it sent this report to Parliament on March 30, just over 2 months, 8 weeks, just over 8 weeks after it was sent to the nation's Parliament. There was a court hearing before it was eventually tabled. Clyde Williams, did the presiding officers over the People's Parliament get it right in delaying the tabling of such a critical report?
Well, the Parliament, the Integrity Commission Act does not make a precise statement as to when the reports are to be tabled on receipt by the Parliament. So the first thing we need to do is to just have the Act say specifically, and that's common right through the Commonwealth, where parliaments bind themselves in procedure by law, and another parliament could change it if they wish. But the Act only says right now, where the report to the Commission, this is 54 subsection 4, where the report to the Commission has a recommendation under subsection 3, which relates to either, future further action for somebody or charging somebody or so on, the Commission shall submit it to Parliament for tabling. And that's it. I'm sorry to laugh. I'm sorry to laugh. That's it. Now remember, oftentimes it would be an executive member, might be, a government official, and a majority in Parliament could use this kind of loose legislation in relation to tabling and timing to corrupt the processes and to withhold from public scrutiny a report that they don't find favorable to their side, to one of their members, to a minister of government. And I'm just talking generic in terms of an executive, a majority in the cabinet, so in the Parliament. So what really needs to happen first is that if the PMP is serious about it and is to move for the amendment of the Act, so that the Act would say something to the effect that the reports are to be tabled by the Speaker and the President in the respective chamber within, say, 2 sittings of receipt, or 1 sitting of receipt, or the very next sitting after the receipt. And understand this, the tabling of the report only means a presentation formally to Parliament, and it doesn't entail anything else. It doesn't entail any referral to a committee necessarily. It doesn't entail any debate necessarily. It only entails a formal presentation to the Parliament. So whatever is happening in the Parliament on that particular sitting should not prevent a report from the Integrity Commission to be tabled at the very next sitting, or you could say within 2 sittings or 3 sittings of receipt, whichever they find convenient and reasonable.
Interesting how you framed that just now, Clyde Williams, and we're being joined by Dr. Nadine Spence, so we're going to go to Dr. Spence in a few ticks. But you framed it in a way that I think would really be encouraging to right-thinking Jamaicans, that there should be an amendment to the Integrity Commission Act requiring that these investigative reports be tabled at the very next sitting after receipt. That would be reasonable, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. No, let us say, the parliamentarians squirm about it and say da. Then one could say, all right, no problem. Since a sitting takes place once weekly, normally, you could say within 2 sittings. The point is, we need to legislate a specific time frame within which the reports are to be tabled. We call these bright line rules. The line is so bright you can't miss it. These are called bright line rules rather than rules based on standard behavior, which is that you'd expect the parliamentarians, the Speaker, to do it within a reasonable time of receipt. Those are what we call, broad standards. The kind of drafting you want for anti-corruption law is what you call bright line rules. No discretion to anyone. You have to do it within this time. And then there are penalties or sanctions if it's not done.
Thank you very much, Clyde Williams. We come back to you in a few moments. Dr. Nadine Spence is also with us. You heard Clyde Williams there. A reasonable suggestion from him that the act needs to be way more specific. And I really like the phrasing of the documents being tabled at the very next sitting after receipt. That would be reasonable, wouldn't it be, Dr. Spence?
It could be, but as usual, you have to look at all the arguments and all the reasons that would have been promulgated as to why there is a tendency to give Parliament a kind of leeway or discretion, parliamentary discretion, to assess when is the right time to table the report or a report from the Integrity Commission. Or any other report that has implications for issues related to fairness and transparency and just the nation's business, So it depends. Is it that, I'm thinking about it. Is it that we think that, the law should dictate specifically all the actions that Parliament should take, and we are not necessarily comfortable with parliamentary discretion? Those are some of the kinds of conversations we need to have, because we might think that, because we perhaps trust the law a little bit more and think the law is accurate all the time and think that we should go according to the law, we forget sometimes that laws were written by people for specific purposes, right? That laws are not value-free, that people critique laws and reform laws and change them because they become inconvenient. So the law by itself doesn't solve the problem. The question is, what is the, and I've heard my good friend Clyde say it all the time, what is the mischief we're seeking to correct, and does this particular action suit the response that we want to get out of Parliament if we were to promote a change to the law of that nature?
But Dr. Spence, we're about a minute out from our first break, but I have to push back a bit on that parliamentary discretion point you raised there. Why should the Parliament be given, too much discretion to determine when a report is tabled? Why should the Parliament be allowed to manage the findings of a report like that? Don't you see that posing problems to transparency?
Parliament is supposed to be the will of the people, you know this, that the people who sit in Parliament are the representatives of the people. And even though you and I and, how many other people might have a problem with parliamentarians and how they manage that responsibility, the truth is that Parliament is the will of the people. So by curtailing Parliament, you are curtailing a particular principle that is critical to the functioning of democratic institutions.
No, but how would you be curtailing Parliament by being clear on when the report should be tabled?
I'm saying, remember the principle that we are dealing with, and so you're saying you're pushing back a little, and I'm saying this is the principle we are working with, that we cannot curtail Parliament too much, because Parliament is the exercise. The election of the people who sit in Parliament is the exercise of the people's will, democratic will.
I hear Clyde wants to come in, but I think we're up on a break, Clyde. Allow me to take the break, and then when we come back, we'll take your thoughts on this. We're talking to Dr. Nadine Spence, and a political commentator, and Clyde Williams is an attorney at law, on the fact that the Parliament has finally tabled this controversial report into the country's gun authority. We take a break right here. This is Lead Story Prime. We come back with more.
Delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Welcome back. This is Lead Story Prime. I'm Tyrone Reed. We're talking about the Parliament, the nation's Parliament, finally tabling the controversial report into the country's gun authority. Of course, it's alleged that there was impropriety in the storage of ammunition and the granting and revocation of gun licenses. We have with us attorney at law Clyde Williams and political commentator Dr. Nadine Spence, and both of them are still with us. Thanks for staying with us. You wanted to come in before Clyde Williams. You heard a point there being made by Dr. Spence about parliamentary discretion. I was trying to push back on it. Let me hear your thoughts.
Well, it's not so much parliamentary discretion. It's really the discretion of the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate, to which the reports are sent. Now, I want us to understand very clearly. It would be parliamentarians that would be regulating how they are to treat reports. So, I need you to understand that. It wouldn't be somebody imposing on the Parliament. It would be the Parliament itself determining what is in the best interest of the tabling of corruption reports, where the allegations are strong to the point where there is recommendation for further action. So I want to just cause Nadine to recognize nobody's putting a constraint on Parliament. It's not externally imposed because it's a branch of government. So it regulates itself through standing orders, and when it prescribes in law how it must treat it. And I want to say this, I did a quick look across the entire Commonwealth. This is standard for these reports. The Auditor General reports, Integrity Commission reports, parliamentary election reports. These reports, and in particular allegations of corruption reports, are very significant. And in parliaments across the Commonwealth, they use what they call the bright line. The line is bright in relation to the tender. Remember, we're not asking Parliament to debate. And just to cause the viewers to understand, a tabling is only a formal presentation. Nothing else has to happen after that. And it is always in the interest of the public who send the parliamentarians there to know if there are specific politicians that have been alleged to have committed criminal offenses, illicit enrichment, corruption offenses. It is in the interest of the Jamaican people to always know this and to know this on a timely basis. And I want to end by saying this. The reason why they have bright line rules for corruption offenses is that history has shown that the majority has used its power and majority to hide, to suppress reports that do not put them in a good light, whether the majority is PNP or JLP. It's besides the point. It's whoever is the majority, that they have used it to suppress reports and to time the reports after so that there is not any damage done to them politically. And that's the reason for the corruption offenses and Auditor General reports. That's the reason why most Commonwealth countries have bright line rules. Now, I'm not going to be saying to them that they should do it immediately. I understand your position on that. I would leave it for them to determine what is reasonable, and I'd say within 3 sittings. Now, within 3 sittings, meaning you can do the first sitting, the second sitting, but you must be by the third sitting, or within 4 sittings, which would be roughly a week. Sorry, a month. It's a sitting roughly a week, so it would be a month. So I would leave them, given what they understand that terrain to be, but I would like you want it to be tabled the very next sitting, which some countries have. But let us say they say within 3 or within 4, but it is unacceptable for 3-4 months. And it is the risk of the majority manipulating the process to cover up and suppress reports that put them in a bad light that we must ensure never happens.
Dr. Nadine Spence, let's wander down this road of parliamentary discretion. What is the mischief, the malady that allowing the parliamentarians to determine over a few sittings whether or not they want to table a report? What mischief, what malady would that solve?
I'm not sure I'm not sure I understand your question. I think the broader point, however, Tyrone, that I was trying to make is that ultimately in a system like ours, in a parliamentary democracy, what we look for, rather than try to ensure that the parliament is legally mandated, is only legally mandated to act, is that we try to engage participatory democracy in the way it was intended. And so this idea of parliamentary discretion is of course within the context of how our constitution operates and the principles of parliament. And the idea that parliament is not supreme, but parliament is elected by the people. And so when we're talking about parliament, we have to be respectful of the fact that parliament is the will of the people.
Right, and transparency is also the will of the people.
We cannot always justify or dislike or distrust of parliament by raising the corruption sector, because what we might what we might be doing by extension is saying that the people's will should not be respected unless the courts decide that this is the extent of that trust.
I'm not so certain that follows, though, Dr. Spence, because the transparency that people are calling for should be carried out by those who should be overseeing the will of the people. I hear you wanting to come in, Clyde Williams.
Please, Nadine.
The courts and the laws as the better part of that reality. That is not that undermines the very principle of democracy.
I'm sorry. Let me. One of the things that we must be always clear in our conversation is not to muddy up the waters. All we're focusing on here is specifically the timeline within an integrity commission report is to be tabled by the parliament. That's the issue. There is no question about the people's will and usurping the people's will. I mean, how do you define the people's will? It's theoretical when Nadine says the parliament is an expression of the people's will. That's theoretical. Less than in terms of the last election. Please, I didn't interrupt you. Less than 20%.
We have a conversation.
No. Well, let me finish. I didn't interrupt you. Less than 20% of the electorate elected the government. That's not any kind of representative. What I'm saying fundamentally is don't muddy the waters. The question is, and I've brought. Please let me finish. And I've brought reference to the Commonwealth in terms of how it's done. And nobody is saying any sector. That's a reality in politics, that the majority, traditionally, historically, the executive uses the majority in Westminster systems to manipulate and to control and to suppress. That is not a theoretical proposition. That's history. And as a consequence, the old-time drafting is what used to take place that leaves a speaker and the president of the Senate with this broad discretion as to when they will table corruption laws, corruption reports. So I don't want to get into anything except a narrow question. Should the Integrity Commission reports, should the parliamentarians amend the Integrity Commission Act to give a specific timeline within which to table the reports that have implicated public servants and politicians in corruption? That's the question before us. Nothing else is before us at this point.
Should Parliament give up some of its power to the judiciary? That's the question, you know.
No, that is not what I'm saying.
That is essentially the question. Should
no,
Parliament
that's not the
give up some
question.
of its power?
You have fundamentally misunderstood it.
Let me referee the discussion, lady and gentlemen. Let me referee the conversation so that our viewers can benefit. Hold on, let me referee the conversation.
Let me just say this quickly.
All right, let me allow you to finish your point, Clyde, and then we'll come back to Dr. Spence.
I want to be very clear. She does not know what she's talking about. Nobody's talking about the court. The court cannot. You do not know. That's why I don't come onto programs. You don't know what you're talking. You don't know what you're talking about. Nobody's talking about the court. The court doesn't amend laws.
All right, folks, Dr. Spence and Clyde Williams, no one is going to benefit if you attempt to speak over each other, right? So let's do the thing decently and in order. So, Dr. Spence, we're going to allow Clyde to finish his point, and then I give you sufficient time to respond. Clyde, complete your point, kindly, might I ask. Clyde Williams? Wait, all right, we're not hearing Clyde Williams. All right, Dr. Spence, are you still with us? So I give you a chance to respond. But let me say this. It appears we've lost. He has left. Is what I'm being told. Oh dear. That's unfortunate.
But Clyde can't be like that. He can't tell me that I'm not. He can't make a personal attack and get upset when I defend myself.
Absolutely. All views must contend. The dialogue is going to get robust sometimes.
It's a conversation and we disagree on a point.
But before you allow you to make the point, I want to correct a figure, because I think I heard Clyde Williams say less than 20% of the population elected the government. I'm on the website of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, and for the September 3, 2025 general elections, it says the voter turnout for the September 3, 2025 general election up to 3 p.m. on that day is 30.41%. I think it went up to, Madam Producer, 39% at the end of the day, is what you told me? Yes? 39%, so it's not less than 20% as we heard there from Clyde Williams. We have to correct the record. Are we up on a break? It's really robust on Lead Story Prime tonight. Yeah, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we continue to go through the reports and we continue to pick the brain, the eminent brain of Dr. Nadine Spence. Soon come.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jodianne Quarry.
Start your journey with
Popeye's Challenge Cup rolls on into the quarterfinal round Wednesday, June 3. It's win or go home. This is where true quality rises to the top. CVM TV will thrill you with a doubleheader from the Anthony Spalding Sports Complex. Jamaica Premier League champions Portmore United look to take a league and cup double, but face off against a Montego Bay United team hungry for silverware in the feature at 8:30 p.m. In the curtain raiser at 6 p.m, home team Arnett Gardens welcome a Jamaica Defence Force team whose military prowess saw them pull off a coup against Premier League giants Cavalier and march into the quarterfinals. Will David slay Goliath? Or will the mighty prevail? It's a tasty Popeye's Challenge Cup quarterfinal doubleheader live on CVM TV.
Start your journey with a Jane Bank Small Business Loan, with small business loans with as little as $10,000 and up to $4 million.
The time is 8:30.
the internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Lead Story Prime. Yes, riveting stuff here on the program tonight. Robust stuff on the program. The nation's parliament finally tabled the controversial Integrity Commission investigative report into the affairs of the country's gun authority, the Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA. The report examined allegations of corruption, impropriety, and irregularities in the grant, variation, and revocation of firearm licenses and storage of firearms and ammunition at the FLA. We have with us Dr. Nadine Spence, political commentator. Dr. Spence, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us.
Thanks for having me still.
All right, so I want to give you a chance to respond to what was said by Clyde Williams.
Which one? This where he said I didn't make any sense?
Well, if you want to respond to that, you can, and then the point that was being made.
I'm just being mischievous, but I will say this: it's a principle, it's a principle of constitutionalism that I'm talking about, and the tension between Parliament and the courts. And I raised that issue with you yesterday as well. That there has to be a way that we give Parliament the space to practice its powers, but at the same time, I'm not saying that Parliament must act, in a way that suggests that having got the mandate of the people, it no longer has an obligation to act lawfully. It has to act within the confines of the Constitution and within what is considered to be legal and within the laws that Parliament itself has made to direct its action and the standing orders and so on. So you're right. So Clyde is right. Parliament makes the laws, Parliament makes the rules, and we hear the Speaker is big on the rules as per the standing orders. But at the same time, we do not want public pressure to be such that we remove every ounce of parliamentary discretion from the people who we have elected to serve in Parliament. And every time we become dissatisfied with a process, we say that what is needed is tighter laws to hold Parliament to a certain kind of action. That means that no, it is the laws that determines how the Parliament exercises.
But Dr. Spence, on a point of order, if I might jump in here, the point is though that this saga involving the tabling of the FLA's report, or the Integrity Commission's report into the affairs of the FLA, it showed that there is a lacuna in the law currently, because there was this decision not to table, and telling Parliament that they must, parliamentarians themselves would have to write this into law, that they would have to table a report that is submitted at the very next sitting after receipt isn't tying the hands of parliamentarians. It's not. It's on this particular matter.
We had a discussion last night on this very same program where we pointed out that decision by Parliament not to table, to use, not to table the report, but to use the excuse that because the courts is doing a particular thing, or because a particular issue is being discussed in the court or being considered by the court, then Parliament cannot act. And we then said that was wrong. That in fact could be seen as unconstitutional by Parliament. You understand? So what it means then is that there is a certain obligation that Parliament has to act, because it is not constrained in that way by the courts, meaning that the court cannot be about doing its own business and then the Parliament says, well, I cannot act because the court is acting. No, it cannot do that.
But if you find that there's a gap legally, Dr. Spence, then you have to plug that gap. That's the business of Parliament, isn't it?
But what we are saying now, what we are saying is that we are going to give Parliament a specific time and a specific date within which to table a report. And I'm not saying that that might not be a response, but I'm saying that when we think about the larger context of our democracy and the principles within which we exercise this democracy, one of that principle is parliamentary discretion. Right. And we must always remember that there's a healthy tension between parliament and the courts, and that we must not force parliament to give over its power to the judiciary. We shouldn't do that.
Let me float this as a case in point for you to consider, Dr. Spence. Given the separation of powers principle, and we still see, and the Privy Council has ruled on this, that mandatory minimums are allowed. Parliaments are empowered to set mandatory minimums that judges must abide by. And judges, and anyone in the legal fraternity will tell you that sentencing is the remit of judges. They're saying no one should encroach upon that. But still we find the Privy Council ruling that Parliament is empowered to set these mandatory minimums. A lot of legal people are offended by it. But Parliament, looking at what is happening in the country, says, look, we are going to put these mandatory minimums down. The judges have to abide by it. How is that different than to say, parliamentarians, we look at how you are operating, we see that you might do the wrong thing when it comes to the tabling of a report. Let us just, for this specific instance, with regards to this specific issue of tabling, not tying the hands of Parliament on everything, you must table these reports at the very next sitting after receipt. That is not tying the hands of Parliament. How could that be construed as such?
And again, the principle that you've raised is pertinent. There are times when Parliament, it would appear, practices, by setting mandatory minimums, is practicing some of the powers that would be the powers of the judiciary. But note that the judiciary has to say that it is okay. And there have been moments when our judiciary has said, no, you've gone too far now. You're stepping over into our lane. And it is only when we are satisfied that you are not encroaching on our responsibilities that we will give you the permission to set mandatory minimums. Right? And we have had cases in our jurisdiction where the courts have said to Parliament, hey, back off. Don't come over here, sir, because you are stepping on our toes. And so this is what I'm saying. We must remember the principle of democracy, that the principles that guide our democracy. And I'm not saying that this is not going to be a point that we shouldn't consider, Tyrone. I'm just saying we must remember that a principle of our democratic tradition and our democratic practice is parliamentary discretion. And we should not remove from Parliament the right to make judgment calls. We cannot do that. And we cannot hand over the powers of Parliament to the courts, because Parliament and the courts operate with two different principles and defend their rights to exercise these principles vigorously. And I'm just saying we must stick to those.
Interestingly, Dr. Spence, the court has agreed with you. The court says we are not going to trespass on parliamentary privilege. That is the remit of Parliament to decide whether or not they want to table. Let's see if we can drill down into the contents of the report a bit more for the viewers. One of the areas I'd like to read from in this report, viewers, it is captioned allegations, and it is subsection 2, section 2.3 of the report, and it says, by way of an anonymous electronic mail received by the Director of Information and Complaints on May 31, 2021, it was alleged that a firearm dealer, John Elliott, gun shop was shut down for numerous months, but miraculously reopened after John paid a hefty $500,000 sum under the table to have it reopened. That's one of the allegations in subsection A. Now, subsection B says, as long as you, and it says here, as long as you, Carter, and that they're pointing out that something is wrong there, get your monetary kickback, you don't care who Shane screws over, is a quotation. C says, you are targeting Mr. Kent Brown because he didn't give Ellsworth Column the $2 million that he tried to shake him down. Any dealer who doesn't come out of pocket, your harassment is non-stop, is what the report says. You and Latine Allen audit Mr. Brown and can never find anything, is what it should read. And it goes on to say, and the public notice put out by the FLA on April 26, 2021, saying that guns at the FLA for 5 years plus will be destroyed. It's a grand ploy to cover up the fact that numerous guns are missing. And that's a shocking claim there. Missing from vaults of the FLA. We have numerous guns and thousands of bullets missing. Some serious claims being made here. 2.4 reads, during the course of the investigation, the DI, that's the Director of Investigation, received the further allegations germane to the investigation by way of statement dated August 19, 2021. It was further alleged that while checking the electronic system at the range, I realized that there were 4 entries made on the system where 3 persons purchased at a total of 6,000 rounds of bird hunting ammunition. It says, I sent my response to the FLA highlighting and showing a lot of flaws and mediocrity in the audit report. Also, numerous fabrication of serial numbers that do not exist, makes and models of weapons that do not exist. And section C says, in April 2018, I wrote a letter to the editor of The Observer. My letter made the letter of the day, and I heard through the grapevine that CEO of the FLA, Mr. Shane Dallin, was not happy with the letter and that he was going to cut me down to size because I have too much title and, quote, chat too much, end quote. Goes on to say, I understand this to mean that Mr. Dalling is not going to stop until he shuts down my business or destroy my reputation. And subsection D says, in May 2019, I went into the FLA to renew my dealers and gunsmith license for both Maxfield Avenue and Temple Hall locations. After receiving the certificates, I saw where half of my dealer license at Temple Hall was revoked. The firearms aspect was removed, leaving only the license to sell ammunition. I called back the FLA and I was told by, and the name is redacted, that this is how it will be. This is the way forward. Just giving you some of the allegations that gave rise to this controversial report into the affairs of the Firearm Licensing Authority, the FLA. This is Lead Story Prime. We take the break right here and come back with more.
This week on Farming Forward, we're coming to you from, whoa, look at that. We're coming to you from Riverdale in St. Catherine. And we'll be talking to that young entrepreneur you just saw. He was picking breadfruit, but I can tell you about the chickens that he's been caring for all these years. He'll be talking to us about real yard chickens. Farming Forward. We're brought to you by Nutrimix. Tell me, Nutrimix. The big feed. The big feed.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We are in our final segment for today's edition of Lead Story Prime. We're discussing the controversial report into the affairs of the Firearm Licensing Authority, the FLA, by the nation's primary anti-corruption body, the Integrity Commission. Dr. Nadine Spence is with us. Dr. Spence, you've been trying to read through the report. I know it's quite lengthy. What has jumped out at you so far?
You know, what jumped out at me so far, you know, it has to do with the fact that the allegations that you just read, they sound very juicy. So like the Reddit stories I've been listening to. But when you look at the findings and the responses and recommendations from the IC, that the juicier parts of the allegations are not necessarily addressed in the IC's investigation findings and recommendations. Which, that part of it leaves one hanging still. You know, how do we, all of the statements that you read, that which led to the investigation, while some serious breaches were identified and must be addressed, the matters of bribery and those issues that were raised were not necessarily borne out through the passage of the investigation. That was one of the things that jumped out at me.
And it's an important point to raise, Dr. Spence, because on page 65 of the FLA's, of this report by the Integrity Commission into the affairs of the FLA, it says the DI is unable to resolve the allegation that Mr. John Elliott corruptly paid $500,000 to anyone at the FLA to have his business reopened because Mr. John Elliott died shortly after the commencement of this investigation. This prevented the DI from exploring the referenced allegations with him. It goes on to say the DI concludes that the act of manipulating the LMS and the inputting of what appears to be inaccurate information on the system by an employee of the FLA to the detriment of Mr. Brown is sufficient basis for a reasonable and detached observer to form the view that Mr. Kent Brown was targeted by the FLA. And that right there is an explosive observation. Dr. Nadine Spence, not certain if you had a chance to read that section of the report.
I have seen that. The report also made the point that the FLA revoked his license, Mr. Brown's licenses, but that the revocation was found to be within the FLA's statutory authority. The IC is drawing a conclusion. It's saying because the system seemed to have been tampered with, it would appear, they don't have the evidence, they're just saying on the face of it, by looking at what we've seen, they're not drawing any strong conclusion. It would appear that this person is being targeted, which again, Tyrone, walk with me. Let us go back to the hesitance on the part of Parliament to table this report. Because remember now, this report having been tabled, a lot of citizens are being named in this report and their reputations are now under scrutiny, significantly damaged in some respect. But the report itself doesn't do much to resolve the issues that have been raised about them. So a specter now, a cloud now hangs over their head, and the report has not done anything to help them to resolve those realities. I understand the need for probity, transparency, and I have my own opinions on that, because I think part of what we're seeing is a failure of the board, which is supposed to be providing the oversight and setting the risk agenda and identifying where the agency is at risk, etc., etc. And I could go into that, but I'm just saying, just thinking about it now, and it just hit me. Those people whose names have been called in this report that will be on the news for the next 3, 4, 5 days, how do they protect themselves from a report like this one?
Well, we've seen in the recent past where what was considered a damaging report with damaging findings led to, of course, it didn't prevent one parliamentarian from being re-elected. He's currently sitting in the House, yeah, and he was the subject of one of these reports. So that issue of reputational damage is also something that we need to have a serious conversation on, and what exactly it means in our Jamaican context, our cultural context. That's something for us to discuss on another program, and hopefully I can get you to join us. The report goes on to say, though, in relation to this particular claim or observation by the Director of Investigation, it says that Mr. Kent Brown was targeted by the FLA. They're saying there is sufficient basis for a reasonable and detached observer to form that view that Mr. Kent Brown was targeted by the FLA. The DI's conclusion, the report goes on to say, is premised on the fact that without any reasonable justification or Mr. Brown's request or consent, Mr. Siobhan Robinson made what appears to be inaccurate entries to Mr. Brown's LMS. These entries had the potential to cause adverse consequences for Mr. Brown's business operations. Further, the report says, and as has been established above, one of the three individuals who is alleged to have purchased 2,000 rounds was deceased at the material time. Now, let's roll back that one there, because this is also crucial. It is saying one of the three individuals who it is being alleged that purchased 2,000 rounds was deceased at the material time that this purchase was said to have taken place. The other two individuals have denied purchasing said rounds. This is consistent with Mr. Brown's account that the sale of the reference rounds to the individuals identified did not occur. The DI is, however, unable to conclude whether Mr. Kent Brown was targeted because he did not pay $2 million to Mr. Ellsworth Callum, former senior compliance officer at the FLA, as was alleged. But again, there, Dr. Nadine Spence, observations loosely being made, but nothing concrete.
Yeah, it doesn't meet a prosecutorial threshold. So it's just things that are said and put out in the ether. The question is, what happens as a result? Can you fire people because of this? I suspect not. Can you lay charges against people? No. So I mean, I don't know. I'm reading it still, but I'm also reading into it. I'm reading between the text. I'm reading in the text. Reading the text.
You're reading it and you're reading into it. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, it goes back to, you keep saying the controversial report. Why is this report controversial?
Well, it was controversial because it was a subject of controversy, the tabling of it. That makes it controversial, and then the title of it is that it's looking into allegations of impropriety and serious business about the storage of guns and ammunition. That is the definition of controversial.
So let me say now, what I find, Tyro, and government ministers and the government must think about this. When boards are appointed, people who sit on boards ought to know what a board is supposed to do. An important part of the work of boards is to ensure that organizations such as this one are meeting the standards for good governance, the standards for transparency, are making sure that organizations set their risk agenda, are making sure that procedures and policies in the organization are set, and that the CEO, the executive director, the managing director, whoever is in charge, is held to book when there is a breach. Mm-hmm. So what I see here is a failure on the part of those who are responsible for the matter of governance, to hold the organization to a certain standards, so that some basic particularities of this organization, we open our eyes wide at it, But remember, this is the Firearm Licensing Authority. If there is any breach, it's going to be a breach related to the handling, treatment, or distribution of firearms.
Life-altering mistakes can be made at the Firearm Licensing Authority. Before we close, Dr. Spence, I want to just read finally from the recommendation contained in the report to the Ministry of National Security and Peace. The DI recommends that the Ministry of National Security conduct a full independent audit of all the FLA's vaults with a view to determining the full extent of missing ammunition and to ensure that all firearms on record are properly accounted for. The DI's recommendation is based on the fact that only 17% of the 4,103 entries on the electronic vault management system were checked and significant anomalies were detected. Most noteworthy, it says, of which is ammunition being unaccounted for. The DI posits that considering the country's current climate in respect of the use of firearms to commit violent crimes, one missing round of ammunition is one too many. Consequently, the DI recommends that the referenced audit be expedited. Fair enough, Dr. Spence?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Of course, again, this is what you expect an organization like this to do. And again, I say an organization that is paying attention to the Public Bodies Management and Accountabilities Act, paying attention to the corporate governance framework, where the board is doing what it's supposed to do, setting the standard for compliance, ensuring that the CEO's feet are held to the fire, ensuring that the regulatory framework is in place as per the enabling legislation, that such an organization that is well run is doing these things on a day-to-day basis. And of course, the reason why we have this report is because another organization is doing its work. So I think what we are seeing here is that our system of government and governance works, and that where things go awry, we have the systems in place. When different parts of the organization fail, we have different systems in place to catch it and reveal to the public what is going wrong. Again, my own concern is that how the complaint started is not how it ended, and that a lot of people's information is out there in the public and allegations are made against people, and that there is no evidence to back up these allegations.
Once again, the erudite Dr. Nadine Spence, thank you so much for joining us on Lead Story
Thanks for having
Prime.
me.
We appreciate the time and the thoughts. That's all we have time for in tonight's edition of Lead Story Prime. Thank you. Pleasant viewing.
Watagwan. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
Every dream conquered is another dream game. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing, and the people that I say we are march up the dance. Oh, what a feeling! Don't stop dreaming. Keep on believing in the power of the feeling. Whatever you want, take a chance. Song in your heart, step in your dance. You got the spark, don't fit it dark. Shine your lights on.
He was simply an outstanding competitor in swimming representing Campion College. He was a member of the victorious team that dominated the ISA competition for 3 consecutive years. He was also a member of that dynamic water polo team that was also unbeaten for 2 years. A member of the powerful Neville Alexander Flying Fish team, which won several trophies at home and abroad.